Okay, now, what I am about to unveil for you all here is one of my most favorite treasured movies of all time. And I'm very protective of it. So the fact that I'm showing you all here tonight shows that I've actually just trust you to an extent to do this. And this is not for those of you who know me already, but those of you who know, I'm very, very protective of entertainment. So, for those of you who know, what I'm about to say next is not for you. This is for those of you who don't know, and it's okay. I don't like any criticism about the work. I don't like it to be frowned upon, talked bad about, compared to anything in any shape or form. I just want to talk about what I love about it, what we all love about it. And so, that's what I'm doing here today. It's a popular show. I normally do unknown ones, but it's all about celebration, right? Celebration, appreciation. I love this corner. Because you ever stop and think to yourself, when somebody goes on a rant and says nothing positive about something, for some reason that's okay. But when somebody talks nothing but positive about something, so all of a sudden they're not constructive. I think that's bullshit. So, in a way, that's why this corner is what it is. Apparently you can't be real unless you're angry. Bullshit. Alright. So, one of my most favorite movies of all time. I give it a 9.99 out of 10. It was almost perfect for me. I do have my reasons why it's not a 10. I may get into it, but it's not really celebratory in that matter. But I think I'll bring it up nevertheless because I am very practiced in giving out what I think doesn't work in a work without coming across as bitter or like trying to degrade it. So I may talk about why it's not a perfect 10. And so without further ado, my favorite movie of 2008, and one of my favorite movies of all time. 2008 was a beautiful year, and this was a beautiful movie. My favorite of the year, and one of my favorites of all time. Thank you all for being folks I feel comfortable enough to share this with. The movie is The Dark Knight. Oh, I love that movie. Jeez, I saw it 8 times in the theaters, twice in IMAX, and one of the most wonderful things about this movie, one of the things I took note of both times when I watched it, right? So I'll walk you through the very first time. Oh, it was filmed in Pittsburgh, and some parts of it were filmed in Chicago, Illinois, which is very awesome as well, because that's a nice big city, part of the big 3, right? Chicago, Illinois, New York, and Los Angeles. Not many go for Chicago, so I thought that was kind of cool, right? Chicago's a nice place. Aside from all the blowhards. Awesome, I didn't realize so many fans. Oh, this is fantastic. Sorry, Games Jam. Yes, there it is. Be careful, Sumio. That's not a work. That's James Cameron. That's fine, but works of art, leave them alone. No, yes, The Dark Knight. So, one thing I took note of the 8 times I saw the movie in theaters, right? Every time the Joker was on screen, I don't know if any of you noticed this, but the children in the audience would not say anything. They were quiet. He captivated them. Every time, absolute silence from the children. You remember, this is Withered Samurai. Remember when they shut down parts of downtown Pittsburgh to film this? Never saw it though, was too young. Hey, thanks for the 140 bits, Luna! Anyway. So, Heath Ledger's performance was so captivating as the Joker that the kids would just watch him. I thought that was beautiful. I love villains, and I loved seeing that. I love that the kids could just kind of relax, because, kids can get rowdy and whatnot, and that's their right. They're little babies. I love kids, but I don't ever hold anything against them. But, I'm watching a movie here, and a fantastic one at that. And, yes, so that is a particular note of interest that I loved when I watched The Dark Knight. And I loved it so much that some acquaintances of mine at the time, I actually paid for a ticket for a guy that I went to go see it with. And he couldn't believe that I paid for his ticket and his popcorn. But I'm like, you gotta see this movie. And so that was a treat. And he liked it too. So my first experience with this movie, one of the things I took note of was how intense it was. Okay, right? I like to describe this movie as they did. You know how intensity kind of slow builds, right? It's like a slow burn. Intensity just builds over time, right? The Dark Knight kicks off with an action scene. Not very tense in the beginning, because we're used to this from Hollywood. However, it's done in such a manner where it seems kind of unique and a little different. Just a little bit. The robbers killing each other, and what? Oh, also going to be spoilers, so. And, so the robbers killing each other off. Very clever plan by the Joker. Well laid. Perfect into the bus traffic, but then another action happens, and another one. I describe this as a film in its own right builds up the intensity with action scenes, right? Instead of like in typical action films, and I love action films, but you just don't feel intense when you watch them, right? You just feel like it's another action scene after another action scene after another action scene. This one, in my opinion, kept on building up, and the intensity got more and more intense with each succeeding action scene. And there's a lot of them, but they're done very well and differently, and they do build upon the previous one instead of just shoot these guys here and shoot these guys there, right? You get the robbery in the beginning, you get Batman doing his thing, and then I can run through the movie, but and I've probably seen this movie like 20 plus times, including when I have because of the Blu-ray and so on, and the home cassette stuff. Sumio says that scene inspired the Payday game series. Ooh, and Chia God says the beginning sequence reminds me of a Guy Ritchie film. Great cinematography. Oh yeah, beautiful cinematography. You kidding me? Beautiful look. And so that was tense for me. Another note that I took note of when I was watching the film for the first time was how the movie had no slow motion scenes. Did you notice that? Slow motion is often used for dramatic effect, not the Dark Knight. Not even when Two-Face would flip his coin. There may have been one instance, maybe when the Joker broke out of prison, but the sound just went silent, really, and he was in the siren car, but there's no slow motion. Therefore, it's real time in its own right. And that is tense, right? You're expecting him to flip the coin, and then does that slow motion, like a close-up of the coin, right? And then slowly rises and slowly falls. Not in the Dark Knight. In the Dark Knight, it was all flip, catch, bang, or not bang. And another note of interest that I loved about this movie was how in the moment the Joker was, right? The Joker can be a complicated character in this movie. No one really knows, like, why, at the beginning he's after money, and then another thing, he says he wants Batman, and he doesn't. Really, if you look at it, the Joker, at least from my opinion, was a character who just lived for the moment of chaos, right? Whatever he felt was what he wanted to do, he would do it, even if it would ruin all of his future laid plans. Because to truly live his chaotic way, he has to put his own plans in jeopardy. And he did that every time. From when he went to the bank, he could have been killed. From when he tried to kill Harvey Dent during the truck sequence, he could have been killed there. And then all of his plans leading up to the fantastic finale of the boat scene in the end, all of it could have gone to shits, but he put himself in the line of fire because that's the way the Joker does things, and that's honestly why he's so powerful and menacing, because he doesn't fear death. The only thing he fears is not having a good time. That's a nasty villain. The villains who don't fear death, and the villains who don't want money but just want to cause problems, and they don't give a shit. And they get away with it too. There's like a sort of, energy that kind of keeps them safe and whatnot. And the Joker certainly has that vibe. He's almost like an entity. Since we don't know his identity, and he lies about it too. So that was one of the brilliant portrayals of the Joker in this film, I felt. And in the end, he doesn't really lose, right? So the heroes have to semi-win by lying. Man, how could Joker not ask for anything better? But in the end, he really just wants to play a Batman. And he didn't realize that until this movie, right? He didn't realize how much fun Batman was until he finally played with him. That was something. That was beautiful. The kind of connection the two share. I never get tired of those interpretations. The Joker and Batman are very much connected. And then when you think about that, though, from a logical standpoint, you get a bat and you get a clown. Interesting. Okay. Sounds like Uso and Fig. Oh, I wonder if Fig was going to catch that. Anyway. So, that's why I took note the first time. It was intense for me, and now the boat scene. I don't know how many of you. I know some people thought that the boat scene, when they were going to twist the key, was going to blow up their own boat. I didn't think that. When I first watched this movie in the theaters, midnight showing, I thought to myself I was on that boat with all the people. Fig is streaming. Okay. Thanks, Sumio. So I thought I was on the boat with all the people. So I felt trapped on there with them and left with the dilemma of to pull the trigger or not. So I thought that was a brilliant touch. I've read screenplay books that tell you You gotta write characters for the audience to sympathize with, so that way they can imagine themselves as a character. I've never been the biggest fan of that. I think it's kind of, no offense to those who believe in it, but I think it's a little gross. So this is a style, though. Like I said, I'm not putting down entertainment, but I think it's a little gross to want to imagine yourself as somebody else, because they are them, and you are you, and I am me. So I've never really taken to that kind of storytelling. I get relatability. I don't get transplanting yourself onto another. I don't. That's kind of, like I said, it's a little gross. So they talked about doing that to engage your audience, to get them to relate with the characters, right? Well, in this film, you didn't have to relate to the audience on the boat. You were on the boat as yourself, and that is by far more effective than pretend. So that's how I felt. I felt GEEP, was on the boat. Not GEEP pretending to be a person on the boat, not GEEP thinking he's the Joker, not GEEP thinking he's Batman. Jeeper was on that motherfucking boat. So yeah, I thought The Dark Knight surpassed that theory, that idea of how to engage an audience. And I believe that some people who may then see themselves on the boat were, not thinking about that or didn't want to go there. I like to put myself in really dangerous situations and imagining them. Not actually I go out there and cause trouble, right? But I always imagine like the worst case scenario and how I would handle it, right? And be honest with myself about it. It's how I get stronger. And in the Dark Knight situation, I just couldn't figure out what the fuck I'd do on that motherfucking boat. I'm glad the old guy got it. That was a good move. And if you notice throughout the entire movie, the Joker is in control. The Joker is completely in control. He's happy, he's enjoying his time. Even when he looks like he's mad, they're just little spouts. But he's getting everything he wants. The first sign you see him really ticked that it didn't go what he had planned, what he envisioned in his mind, was when the people didn't kill each other. That's the first look on his face of true defeat, was right there. That's a long time, and I think that's how a villain should be written. Where you just think, they can't beat this guy, right? When you really believe, like, how are you realistically going to do this since you've been playing it up like this for so long? Are you just going to do a cheap Deus Ex? Are you just going to say they had a change of heart? Are you just going to give Batman some sort of big Joker killing gun? No. Joker doesn't even die. I love that even more. Too often the villains die. When in truth, when you think about it, bad people in real life don't die. So this is, in a way, it's kind of a farce that the villains get killed. It's more realistic, if you want to talk realistic, and everyone's all about realism, if your villains survive. Joker lives in The Dark Knight. Something other superhero films haven't taken to heart. But anyway, that's the smallest quib I'll do, but I'm not going to sing out which ones. And I think people don't do that because they're afraid. I think it scares them too much to admit that really bad people really don't die as often as good people. But it's more real. It's more honest. It may be terrifying. But like I said, it's more honest. And I love that about The Dark Knight. I love it. I love it. Because how can you really move on in reality if you're not presented a reality? Killing villains in movies, I have perceived it for quite some time now, ever since I became a writer, as just a fantasy people want to believe will happen, so they'll make it happen. So, for future reference, folks, you can expect very few villains in my writing to die. Because I do not think that's realistic. And thank you, Dark Knight, for presenting one of the worst villains of cinema and not killing him. Thank you, Dark Knight. I'm thinking The Dark Knight. There's an energy about entertainment that sometimes they dictate their own actions, right? You think you're making the film. You think you're writing the script. You think you're acting the scene. But the film is really directing you. It's in your soul. It's in your body. I'm a writer and an artist. Give me a break. That's what I feel. And The Dark Knight always invigorates me. This was the movie that made me want to write. After this movie, I felt I didn't need to see anything else. I had what I needed, and I started writing. My first screenplay. First feature-length film. Took great inspiration from The Dark Knight. Another note of The Dark Knight. If you look at all the side characters, it almost looks like they all have personalities and backgrounds. You ever notice how some background characters in several of the movies don't really make an impression, and yet somehow, like, every person in this goddamn movie looked like they were acting their soul out. Like they knew a whole script, but really they were just playing a background role, but they were all just acting. Everyone was acting in this movie. Everyone was just alive in this movie. Now, I'll get right into it. Why isn't The Dark Knight a 10 for me? With all of this, it has all the things I believe is wonderful about art and great to say and whatnot. Why isn't The Dark Knight a 10 for me? Well, that lies for me, the one difficulty is with Rachel's character. Of all the characters in the movie, she wasn't a worthless character. She played her part. But, and I think Maggie Gyllenhaal did the best she could with the role she got. But I really felt that character, you didn't really know what she wanted. Every character down to the side characters, you get a feel. It's a feel. It's not logical, but in truth, it is true. You get a feel for everyone's wants and their needs in the characters. I never got a feel of what Rachel actually wanted as a character. I felt she was just there as a prop for Harvey and Bruce. And fortunately, her acting provided her enough character, thanks to Maggie Gyllenhaal, not Gyllenhaal, it's like Gyllenhaal, that I felt she was still character enough that the film wasn't just like a complete botch of like, you see two great guys, Harvey Dent, Two-Face, and Bruce Wayne, Batman, and imagine they fall in love with, like a mannequin, right? That's, you're like, yeah, so these guys don't really have it all going on in their heads, do they? Not that they had it all going on, really, but, it's kind of, that's a cool psychological aspect of the movie and the characters in general. So that was the only reason. For me, it's just the way the character was written, the way she was done. It's like, okay, so she's a lawyer. Okay, so she's Harvey's girlfriend. Why is she a lawyer? Why is she Harvey's girlfriend? And you don't have to explain it. But I needed a feel that the writers, the creators, director, whomever, was in charge of that character. At least they knew. They needed to know why she was everything she was. Why she chose every path she chose. I love it when you know your characters, what they choose, why they choose, how they choose, and you don't have to explain it. But that feel carries across. And boy, did it carry across with all the other characters, from Ramirez to the gangsters. Each one of them with their own personalities, right? And of course, the main characters. But every time I watch this movie, I think to myself, it's a 10. But that feeling in my soul says, it's not cheap. It's not because of Rachel's handling. Notice how I don't say because of Rachel. I say because of Rachel's handling. I think she could have been a beautiful character. But there you have it. Alas, the creators did not feel she deserved as big a part as the rest in terms of character determination, character choice, and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, she was not worthless. She did her job. She was probable enough for me to believe that Harvey and Bruce would fall for her, as buried as the reasons may be. And the movie turned out splendidly. Gosh, I love this movie. And you can see why, given how I like to write things and approach art, why this would definitely be one of my favorite movies. Yeah, So, The Dark Knight, folks. And when you think about it, it can even end here. It's just Batman doing his thing. It doesn't even feel like a sequel, right? But it is. So, celebration, appreciation. Give it up for The Dark Knight! Thank you, Dark Knight, for inspiring me, for showing me some things, some dark things, and some twisted things, and some real true things. And being my favorite movie of all time of 2008, and one of my favorite movies of all time. And you always will be. We watch this thing annually. And not because we force ourselves to. Because we're just like, I'm like, hey, B, you want to watch The Dark Knight? And B's like, yeah, let's watch The Dark Knight. Okay. And that, folks, is my appreciation of The Dark Knight. Thank you so much, Dark Knight. I'll love you forever. Cheers. Really did. Yeah, The Dark Knight! Anyway, let's go to Peach Hana. So